Hey guys, Angie here to break down UFC 288 Sterling versus Cejudo. Overall, a really great event, great prelims as well. We had a really good win for Matt Frevola over Drew Dober, knockout in the first round. Also, another notable fight was Jean Giroba over Marina Rodriguez. Really good fights in the prelims, so I watched it all. I enjoyed it very much so. So let's get into it. I'm just in a new location for today, but I'll go back to my main setup maybe next time. So Aljamain Sterling wins a split decision over Henry Cejudo. So I actually scored the fight for Aljamain quite convincingly. I thought Aljamain Sterling, he got maybe 3 rounds to 2 or even 4 to 1. That's not to say that the rounds weren't competitive, but I felt Aljamain was just doing a little bit more. I think he got less control time, but he was just a little busier. Cejudo struggled a lot with his range, I think, finding the punches, and maybe to some people it looked like he was trying to do more, but I felt like a lot of those punches didn't actually land. So it was a little bit disappointing, I think, for Cejudo fans. I was a little bit disappointed myself because I really started to take a liking to Cejudo over this fight week. And he really sold the fight, and he really convinced you that he would be able to do it. So that's a little bit disappointing for Cejudo. I felt like he didn't fight at his best, but he did have that 3-year layoff. I think he probably did as well as he could have, but he did sort of say that the awkwardness of Aljamain Sterling really got him a little bit taken aback. And he said, you know, he knew that Aljamain Sterling was going to have awkward striking, but he didn't expect that he wouldn't know what to do with it. So it's so interesting how that can throw people off when they're not used to that awkward rhythm until they get in there. It's kind of like jamming to music when you don't know what the time signature is going to be or the chords. Yeah, I underestimated Aljamain Sterling a lot in this fight. He definitely deserves a lot more respect. But I don't think this should have been a split decision win. I think it should have been unanimous. Aljamain, he's so wiry. I think that the wiriness and the awkwardness just it was making it very hard for Cejudo to find his range. And Cejudo was, even when he was finding his range, I felt like he wasn't sitting down on his shots, and they weren't really hurting Aljamain. The switch dancing of Aljamain and the footwork gave Cejudo a lot of problems. But the biggest thing, I think, not the technical things, but I think the biggest thing I noticed that I was a little bit surprised with was the corner of Cejudo. They seemed to think that Cejudo was winning these rounds quite convincingly, and I think I heard one of the media guys said in the press conference, that the post-fight press conference, that everyone that was there in the arena thought Cejudo was winning, and maybe that's because they didn't actually see how the shots were landing. Everyone at home, like me, thought that probably saw that those shots weren't landing so clean. So maybe that's why some people were confused that Cejudo maybe didn't win. So yeah, the corner, I was a little bit, so surprised. I thought, maybe they're seeing the same thing that other people are seeing in the audience there in the arena, that maybe Cejudo's having a bit more success. But it was very clear to see that a lot of his strikes weren't landing, and he was really, really, really struggling to get into that range. But Aljamain Sterling's corner, they were amazing. Ray Longo, Matt Serra, they're just an amazing team. And it doesn't matter if you're like a world-class fighter. If your team isn't fully locked in and fully aware of what's going on, then it's difficult to win, because perception is everything in fighting. And if you think you're winning in fighting and you don't have that sense of urgency, I think that's what I was missing from Cejudo, that sense of urgency. But he had so much thrown at him from Aljamain that he seemed to not be able to create much of an impact. Yeah, and also on the range subject, it was so obvious that Cejudo was way, way shorter and smaller than Sterling with his limbs. It almost looked like Sterling was 2 weight classes above. he just really struggled to find that range. Yeah, so overall, Aljamain landed a lot more strikes than Cejudo. He did more. What happened in the wrestling end? I think Cejudo, you know, maybe had a bit more control time, but he sort of failed to get anywhere with it. Like, he didn't really have any success with submission attempts or anything. I think Aljamain probably had better use of his ground control time. And lastly, what I want to sort of point out is that, so I thought Cejudo was going to win, so I put $1 on him. I just have fun bets, $1 bets. I'm like, yeah, I was just so convinced. But as soon as I saw Cejudo walk into the arena when they're walking in to, you know, get ready and that, when they show that sort of video in, I'm like, oh my God, he's feeling the moment. He's feeling the pressure he's not used to. It's not that he's got ring rust. He's just he didn't look as comfortable. When you saw Aljamain Sterling, he looked so comfortable and at ease. And as soon as I saw them, both of their energies and their expression on their faces, I'm like, oh my God, Cejudo, I don't know if you can win this. And next time I do a fun bet, maybe I'll wait until they walk in and see where they're at with their energy, because I think that was like pretty much told you who was going to win right there. Like, as soon as I saw them walking in, I'm like, oh shit, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this. And then walking into the arena for the actual fight, I mean, get into the octagon, it was similar. So, you know, I'm a bit disappointed for Cejudo. I really wanted to see him win. I really wanted to see him fight Volkanovski and all that nonsense, but that would have been fun. But, you know, poor Aljamain Sterling doesn't get to, like, have a moment to celebrate. They get Sean O'Malley in, which is awesome, but Jesus Christ, they shit all over this guy. If you don't respect Sterling, then you really should now. I get the feeling he's going to go down as one of those fighters that we remember of as being a great, but not during the time that they were here, which is a shame. I think Aljamain Sterling must have a really, really, really strong mentality and really, really, really strong team to be able to just brush all this stuff off, because if you ask me, that's the hardest thing to deal with. Yeah, so Sean O'Malley, I'm really excited for that fight. I know, you know, some people are more deserving and all that stuff. I don't care. Sean O'Malley's cool. I'm a fan. Sometimes, you know, I don't enjoy all the stuff he says, but he's entertaining. He's actually got a really, like, he has all that crap stuff, kind of like Cejudo and kind of like Sterling, but maybe not as cheesy. But he's also very knowledgeable, very spiritual, very smart, intelligent guy. If you think he's just like who he perceives himself to be, just someone who's cool and, you know, flourish, you're wrong. He is so calculated. He's so, he knows how to play the game. He's also very creative, so it's a very powerful combination there. You know, and all this time off, I know that he's working hard. People forget Sean O'Malley has really great jiu-jitsu as well, and we haven't really seen that in the octagon yet, but I think against Sterling, that'll help him a lot. I wouldn't be surprised to see Sean O'Malley actually become champion. And I'm not saying that lightly either. I don't know, the turnaround will be September. That's the plan so far, so that's a few months. I don't know, after watching how that fight went down, I think Sean O'Malley's going to have better success with Aljamain, because Aljamain seems to fight a lot from the distance and have success there, but if O'Malley can get even more distance on him and strike from the outside, that could be very interesting. I don't know. I'm not disrespecting Aljamain, saying that he'll lose, but I think that'll be a more competitive fight than what most people would think, so there's something to look forward to. Yeah, there's Sean O'Malley, Dana, Aljamain. They just got him in right after he got the belt. He was in the middle of his interview. I mean, that is just saying you are just hopeless. We need to get Sugar in right away to promote the next fight. That was funny though. I enjoyed that. It kind of really set up a fight between O'Malley and Merab as well, which I'd like to see later on too. Okay, so Muhammad defeats Burns by a very dominant decision win. Yeah, so I had Muhammad winning. I put $1 on him and I was pretty happy with that. So I think my profit was like 15 cents for the day. Yeah, I was just so I was just so confident in Muhammad, and it was just so obvious. Burns was run down. I mean, he's been too busy. He's 36, and when you do turnarounds like that, I just knew that it would be tough for him to come to turn up at his full potential. There's just no way that's going to happen. Fight fatigue is a real thing, and that was just the motto of this card. This also for Drew Dober, like he's with that knockout win for Matt Frivola. You know, your prime is really short as a fighter sometimes, especially in these lighter divisions where you know the up and coming fighters are getting so well rounded and so dangerous and so confident. You really got to be careful once you get a little bit older, and you've really got to play it safe a bit. Know when to take your chances. Like for me, I think this was a really good chance for Muhammad to like finally be like, no, now I get the next title shot, and he fought really smart too. It was a real shame that Gilbert Burns got injured with his shoulder. I'm not sure what happened, but he was in a lot of pain there, and injuries like that happen when you have 3 fights in like 3 months. Like, I feel bad for him, but sometimes, you know, it's hard to know when it is the right time to take a chance and fight, but respect to both guys. So I thought Muhammad eased off to a really good start. He had really great success with those kicks to the body. That was amazing, very smart. Gilbert wasn't really able to take him down. I think maybe he did take him down once, but he wasn't really able to keep taking him down or do anything there with his jiu-jitsu. So then it was sort of like a stand-up fight, and then Gilbert hurt his arm, I think, yeah, on one of those takedowns or stuffs from Muhammad. And then he was just, his demeanor completely changed for the rest of the fight. I felt like Gilbert was still dangerous the entire fight. You could just feel it, especially with the way Muhammad was approaching the fight. He kind of was really strong to start with, Muhammad that is. And once he was starting to have really good success, I'm like, okay, now you can finish him. You know, finish it. You can tell Gilbert's demoralized, but he wouldn't capitalize on that risk. I think in another fight, he probably should. Like if he's fighting someone like Colby or Leon, definitely you want to capitalize on that. It really reminded me of the fight between, well, a similar situation to when Usman and Gilbert fought for the belt. Usman just took full advantage of Gilbert once he was demoralized with those jabs and finished it. And I think if Muhammad doesn't sort of have that attitude in a championship fight, he's gonna need it, I think, to have success there. But back to this fight. Yeah, so Muhammad kind of let him off the hook a bit. The corners told him that as well. But he just eased ahead, didn't really take any risks that he didn't have to, didn't give Gilbert any chances to get him back. Yeah, I think if Gilbert wasn't injured and if he was fully fresh, if Muhammad had eased off, Gilbert may have had an opportunity to get back into the fight there. It would have been interesting, really interesting to see this fight if they both had full camps. That would have been very interesting. I still would have given the edge to Muhammad, just because he hasn't fought for the belt yet, and he's just had to put up so many people getting ahead of him. And I think when you are like that, I think sometimes when fighters don't get that favoritism, and it happens to them over and over again, and they just get so determined, that determination is something really strong that I don't think people can relate to unless they've felt like they've been ignored, and it gives you this kind of hidden power. So fight fatigue is real. Yeah, so overall I would have liked to see a little bit more out of Muhammad finishing the show. He seemed to have really, really accurate kicking range, but the close range of the striking he seemed to sometimes miss and not be able to find his range, and I think that was probably because he was a little bit afraid of Gilbert getting him at really close range. So he was so aware of that. So I don't know whether to really criticize that negatively or not, but you like to see fighters take some risks too. Yeah, so overall, really intriguing fight. I feel bad for Gilbert. He needs to get some rest, and it sucks for him too, because Now we can't. Maybe he'll be able to be, you know, a last-minute replacement in some sort of setting for a championship fight, because he has, you know, done a lot of good for the UFC. So I wouldn't count him out, but he needs to get some rest. For Muhammad, yeah, I'm excited to see the title fight. I think he's going to do probably better against Colby. Just because after watching him fight Leon a couple of years back, he seemed to. I mean, it's different, right? It's been 2 years, but I think Leon just had his number. I think Leon will be a very tough fight for him, with Leon's ability to keep the distance, and he's longer. Colby, I reckon, will have more of a shot, but he would want to be a bit busier to keep up with Colby. So that'll be interesting to see. Alright, so Yan Xiaonan has her coming out party. She gets her first finish in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. I think I said that in the breakdown of this fight. TKO round 1 over Andrade, who came out as sloppy as shit. She was just swinging for the fences. She was flapping her arms around like a duck. She was just completely... all her technique just went out the window. And yeah, I think that's due to fight fatigue. She's had too many fights, similar to Gilbert, same situation. But she just threw all her technique out the window. But Yan Xiaonan looked really good. Very quick, very accurate. She's definitely improved, so I can't just count her out. Like, even though Andrade probably didn't show up, Yan Xiaonan looked on another level. As soon as, like, Andrade... I shouldn't laugh, and sometimes you just can tell, like, when someone doesn't show up, and that's what happens when you're tired and fatigued. It happens to everyone, no matter what you do. If you're really tired and worn out and you just turn up for a paycheck, you're not going to do a good job, especially with fighting, when you have to be focused in every millisecond. So I feel, yeah, a bit bad for Andrade, but really happy for Yan Xiaonan. And now if we can get the title fight with Wei Li and Yan Xiaonan in China or something like that, that'll be so big and so much fun. I think Yan Xiaonan might be a little bit taller and longer than Wei Li, but Wei Li, she's a machine. Not much else to say on this fight, really. I kind of predicted that Andrade might have a bit of fight fatigue, but I still didn't think Yan Xiaonan would look this good. So congratulations, Yan Xiaonan, and I really want to see that fight with Wei Li. MOVSAR of EVLOEV wins the decision. A very competitive fight against replacement for Bryce Mitchell, what's his name, Lopez. I haven't got his first name here. Over Lopez, sorry, Diego Lopez. Such a competitive fight, such a crazy fight. I think MOVSAR got in 3 different submissions, and very dangerous ones, and he seemed to withstand them with whether it was his toughness, his flexibility, as you mentioned, or his technique, or I don't know what, but he managed to survive an armbar, a knee bar, and a Kimura, I think. What was the score? Oh yeah, someone judged the fight as 30-27. I don't think so. I think it was probably 2-1 for EVLOEV. But some of those rounds were super competitive. I still thought it was a definite win for EVLOEV. He seemed to be better conditioned, and overall he was had a sort of better composure, and overall he had a better fight application. So it was just a bit more experienced, a bit more ready for the fight. Obviously Diego Lopez was a last minute replacement. I think, yeah, Diego was really good with the stand-up to start with. He had some really good success, but then he made a few mistakes sometimes in those ground exchanges. Yeah, MOVSAR was just a bit more patient, a bit more calculating. So the right man won. It's a cool fight. I'm really surprised how well Lopez did, being such a last-minute guy, and he was giving it his 100% all. Like, he was really going for it, which is really great to see, because sometimes it can be hard to do 100% effort, but it's nice to see that. Yeah, EVLOEV, he's the real deal. I'd like to see him fight someone, higher up. Maybe not Bryce, but someone different. called out Edson Barboza. No, or was that someone else? Oh dear, I don't remember. Maybe that was Charles Jourdain. But yeah, really good fight. I think they got performance of the night, or fight of the night, sorry. You know, I don't feel too bad for Bryce Mitchell. I think sometimes these things happen for a reason, and it'll be good to see him fight someone maybe not so dangerous. Give him a tune-up fight, because he deserves it. Charles Jourdain wins a decision over KRON Gracie. Pretty much a one-sided fight. Gracie just showed up trying to do the jiu-jitsu thing all night, and it failed. Obviously you can't just show up and have one thing to your game. You got to be multi-dimensional in MMA, because that's what it is. It's mixed martial arts. So he kind of fell short. It was really weird though, because when he did throw his hands, he looked strong. He looked good. He looked like he knew what he was doing, but he decided not to do it. Maybe that's partially just inexperience and the time off, because you always fall back to what you're most comfortable with in the octagon or whatever you do. Because if you're feeling anxious and all that, you go to your safety zone. Yeah, so KRON was unwilling to strike, but he's still trying real hard to get those subs. Jourdain, who's a black belt, maybe not as high degree, he just knew how to get rid of that jiu-jitsu threat on the ground, any submission threats. Jourdain looked really slick on the feet too. Pretty much KRON was just standing in front of him and blocking, and then trying to just, you know, grab him. It was a little bit of a weak game, but, you know, I think Charles Jourdain did well to sort of nullify that jiu-jitsu threat, even in some of those ground positions. He did really well, kept composed. I think KRON Gracie, you know, should probably, you know, have another fight if he wants to really do this, and just let go a bit and try to strike more, because you really got to mix it up. I mean, the best in the game, like someone like Charles Oliveira, he's so good at mixing everything up. That's why he's so good. So good at you know, he's got submissions waiting for you everywhere, but he's throwing knees and you know, punches, and he's really mixing it up with his Muay Thai stuff. So yeah, it's kind of a new era now where we're going to see more and more multi-dimensional fighters, and it's really exciting. Yeah, so I think that's about it. Thanks for coming back and watching another video. Yeah, see you around the traps. Oh, lastly, if you've watched this far, I just wanted to shout out a Kickstarter I'm doing. It's completely unrelated to MMA, but I'm just sort of reaching out wherever I can. So I've actually got a graphic novel I want to print, that I've written and drawn. It's set in Tasmania, 1940s. It's a historical work set in World War II times. I'll put the link in the description somewhere, but yeah, if you're keen to check out my Kickstarter, I just thought I'd give that a little shout out. But thanks so much for the support, and that's all. Bing.